from the Good Steward Training Company, and she's here today to teach us a little bit about practicing on-leash training behaviors and how we set our pups up for success. So, Jennifer, tell us a little bit about why our dogs can become reactive.
So, reactivity is kind of a label that we use to identify a lot of behaviors. It typically refers to things like fixating on other dogs or on people, pulling, lunging, barking, and growling at other things. And there's a couple root causes for those behaviors. One of them is typically fear, especially right now with all the quarantine. We're seeing a lot of dogs who didn't get a lot of exposure to things when they were young, so they're very fearful of new things. It also, though, can be caused by frustration. So sometimes if you have a dog who maybe is really excited about seeing other dogs, they can get extra frustrated on leash when they don't have access to those other animals. One of the things that's important to know that a lot of people don't realize is that socialization is actually a period of time when your dog is very young. Whatever they experience and how they experience it during that time period is going to set the tone for how they perceive the world. So once they're older, we can't change that socialization, but we can impact their emotions.
Right, so those are situations or reasons why dogs might become reactive. What can we do about it? What are some strategies that we can implement to help combat that reactivity and set our pups up for success?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that we can do. One of the most important things is to remember that our dogs are doing behaviors for a reason, even if we don't understand it. So we want to be really empathetic to that. We want to make sure that we're not ever using training techniques that use punishment or force or fear, because that's only going to make these issues worse. Instead, we want to use what's called positive reinforcement training methods, which is all about identifying behaviors we want and seeing more of them in the future. So one of the other things that's really important that a lot of people miss is sometimes these undesired behaviors, especially over arousal, excitement, frustration, can be caused because we're not actually meeting our dog's needs in the home. So we want to make sure that every day we're providing ample mental and physical stimulation for our dogs, as well as meeting their emotional needs. So now that we know the training technique and we're making sure we're meeting their needs, we want to remember that just like we have to learn on the kindergarten level and make our way up to college, the same goes for our dogs. So we want to start setting them up for success by training in the home and then graduating to maybe the backyard, the front yard, and then out on walks. So we need to start where they're going to be successful if we want to be able to see and reward those behaviors.
That's super helpful, and that sounds like we really can do something if we're noticing behaviors in our dog that we're worried about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so can you show us an example of how we might implement?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a really great collection of training techniques. They're called pattern games. They were created by a trainer named Leslie McDevitt, and she actually has a whole program called Control Unleashed if you're interested in it. I love it. But these pattern games are really simple things that we can implement in our everyday life that really can help to establish a foundation for our dog. So the ones that we're going to go over with Tonks today are the up-down game, and that game is going to be really helpful for rewarding your dog for giving you attention. And then we're also going to do the boomerang game, which is really helpful for teaching your dog that coming towards you is going to be rewarding. So Tonks, good girl! So the up-down game is pretty simple. What we're going to do is I'm usually going to take a bowl of their food if they really like it, or maybe some treats that you have on your back or your hip. And what you're going to do is you're going to drop a treat onto the ground. Your dog is going to get that treat or look for that treat. Tonks is having a hard time finding it. Yes! And as soon as they look back up, I'm going to say yes and drop another treat. So wait, she looks up. Yes! Drop another treat. Yes! Drop another treat. What this is doing is every time the treat goes down, her head goes away from me. When she brings her head toward me on her own, I'm marking that with a yes to tell her that's what I'm looking for, and I'm giving her a reward. So this is a really great way that you can get in lots of repetition and practice, teaching your dog that offering you their attention when you don't ask for it is really reinforcing for them. So the other game that we like to play, which you can play with leash on or leash off, is going to be called the boomerang game. So this game kind of operates with the same pattern principle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a treat and I'm going to toss it a little bit away from me. Now as soon as Tonks looks back, yes, and I'm going to toss it back in the other direction. I'm going to wait for that attention or that orienting towards me. Yes, get it. So you can see how she's boomeranging away and back towards me. Every time she goes from facing away from me to orienting back in my direction, I'm going to mark that with a yes, and I'm going to toss another reward for her. So this is helping her to get in that pattern of offering attention and coming towards me is really rewarding. So this is a really great foundation for a really strong recall as well. And I typically recommend practicing these behaviors in the home first. You can do it off leash. Then introduce a regular leash, a longer leash, and then maybe go all the way up to a 50 foot before you try doing things off leash if you're not confident or you're not in a secured location. It's also important to remember that playing these games isn't about teaching the dog the game so much as it is about building up the history of them knowing that these things are going to be rewarded. So practice it every day and you're going to get a really strong, consistent behavior from them, and you're going to see that they really want to be around you and offer you a lot of attention even when you're not asking for it.
Thanks, Jennifer. That was crazy informative. I loved all the things that you shared with us, and thank you to Tonks for being such a good helper.
She's taking my